I love that you're traveling more than me these days, Anthony.
I am, my friend. But the good thing is
Yeah.
I'm in a car with four wheels, not in a plane with two motors.
That's a good point.
I'm Anthony. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's my friend Glenn.
You're watching the #1 show in hospitality.
Everybody, welcome to No Vacancy Live. I'm Glenn Houseman. That's Anthony Melchiori. Thanks so much for spending some time with us today. Anthony, 2-engine airplanes. We know 4-engine airplanes, but you remember, I think McDonnell Douglas used to do the 3-engine ones, right? Then 2 on the wings and then 1 in the back wing kind of thing. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I like the ones with 1 engine. I only get on if there's only 1 engine.
That's if that goes out, you just want to glide, right?
Why play it safe, man? Go with 1 engine and 1 wheel. Let's go.
This is why you're such a big shot. You're a risk taker, where I'm an ultra conservative when it comes to leveraging risk.
I am a conservative risk taker, meaning I'll drive a car at 170 miles an hour around the racetrack, but I will not jump out of an airplane.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So, Anthony, I was at the NYU Hospitality Investment Conference a couple of weeks ago, and I thought it might be fun to bring our friend Charles Oswald on, CEO of Aperture, to talk about how he saw that, where we are right now, and talk about some other really important issues in hospitality. So let's welcome Charles Oswald. Great to see you, friend. How are you today?
Hey, it's great to be here. Thank you. Very well.
You know what I really
Charles,
what is that?
1 second. So Charles, before you came on, he went through a red stop sign because I put my finger up like, before you bring him on, he knows that means wait a second. But he didn't want to, so he wanted to bring you on first. But I wanted to say this when you were in the green room so we didn't make you blush. Yeah. And yesterday, I said, who's coming on tomorrow? And he said you, and he goes, he really knows his stuff. So I just wanted to give you that compliment.
Well, that's really nice of you to say. Thank you, Glenn.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'd never say it to your face, though. So
that's right. Well, thank you, Anthony.
Charles and I recently did an online session with our friends over at Integra, and you really gave some great perspective over there. So I'm hoping we can have a little bit of fun with that today. But first, what I really love is you've really hit the ground running. You've had, you've had CEO positions in the past, but now this is your own baby as CEO of Aperture. And after 15 months, you've got 24 projects that you're currently managing, as well as projects that come and go because of bank stuff and helping people out and that sort of stuff. So I want to compliment you to your face or through a camera. What an amazing accomplishment in such a short period of time. So kudos to you, friend.
Oh, thank you. Kind of humbled by the growth. It's we've been fortunate. It comes through relationships and just people we know that we've put up some good results for in the past, kind of coming back to us and our leadership team. So very fortunate to have a great leadership team around me.
So before we get going, not a lot of people know who you are. So why don't you just give in 30 seconds less your background so we can catch people up?
In terms of personal background, I'm a guy who just came up through the operations side, started in full serve restaurants, was a business major, focused on finance, and worked my way up through the industry with companies like Hyatt, Weingarten and Hammonds, and then Noble Investment Group for about 10 years. And then I was CEO of Aperture Hotels, and we launched Aperture Hotels a little over a year ago. And by taking on initially some of the Banyan Investment Group portfolio, a ownership group based out of Atlanta, now known as Satori Collective, and then since then I've added a dozen or so third-party management contracts. So our company is focused on third-party hotel management. 24 properties operating today, numerous more in the pipeline, adding at a pace of about 1 per month. So it's been really fun and exciting. Those properties are essentially range from limited and select service properties to compact full service and lifestyle, from coastal Florida through coastal California to the northern Midwest to sitting in 9 states and the mountains. So it's pretty exciting and diverse portfolio. But I'd say what we've done so far is nothing compared to what's ahead of us. So we're very excited about things to come.
Love that attitude.
So what was, as we know, management companies, you need a lot of hotels to make money, because as you're bringing them on, you have to have VPs and you have to have regionals. And there's a lot of expense that goes into running a very effective management company. So what was it that you saw outside of that opportunity that you saw with that company? You said, okay, we can take over some of their hotels, but you must have seen something that is the soft spot. You're like, oh, I've been doing this a long time. If I hit this, this is how we grow. So what is it that you saw that maybe other people, because listen, we've seen them all, right? We've seen the management companies come in, get smashed in the head, get bounced off the truck, and they're on the side of the road. What did you see that said, that ain't going to happen to me? That is not going to happen to us?
Yeah, well, I'll start with what my biggest fear was, which was we launched at a time when transactional markets tightened up, right? So rolling out in the spring of 2023, rather, the markets were down about 50% in transactions versus 2022, and now through spring of 2024 is about 50% of the 50%, right? So we're way down where levels were in 2022. And typically management companies come in at the point that a transaction occurs. That's when the management company applies the new investors thesis. So that right there is the scary part. So what was our competitive point of difference, and why are we here, and why have we been successful? Is when you go out to the marketplace, you find everybody wants to speak with somebody that knows what they're talking about. They understand the business. They're looking for that voice of experience. But all too often, you might meet a person. Now there's been all this management company consolidation. You might meet and be engaged as an investor, engaged with a management company rep that might be experienced, and they hand you off to someone of lesser experience and less. And so you get lost in the crowd of a big company now. The white space that we fill is that our leadership team has experience with managing over 600 properties. Myself, I'm closing in on about 300 properties throughout my career. They've ranged from 60-room, boutiques to 1,000+ room convention hotels and resorts. And so our size is boutique enough, though, that when we engage an owner, they realize they're speaking with somebody that has the voice of experience, that can guide them through the process of development, conversion, acquisition, whatever it is, change of management. But also we're boutique enough size that we're paying attention to their assets. They're not lost in the numbers. When they pick up the phone, they want to call to their vice president of operations or the CEO, that we're available to answer the phone. That's the difference.
Yeah, it's a huge difference right there, but it's really kind of a sweet spot, and you're always kind of having to adjust to be on the fly, because maybe you should take on that project, but if you don't take on that project, then maybe you don't have to add a regional office and, a lot more layers of complexity. So how are you thinking about balancing the size of your company versus what you're able to deliver to your clients out there?
Yeah, so initially when you launch a company, it is about building scale, to Anthony's point. Right. You really don't make any money in the early launch. You're investing in people and technology, and you're bringing in this high-end leadership team that has all this experience into a small company, and compelling them to come in could be tricky, right? So you make some concessions maybe initially to build scale. You take on some really tough turnarounds, and then you just prove your mettle. And those become your case studies that help you advance and take on, be trusted to manage higher quality assets and more complex locations in the future. So that's really what it's been about thus far. Is it's about scaling initially, and then being more selective in the future.
Yeah, it's about, you just said, it's about trust, right? Because at the end of the day, the reason you got those first few hotels for your company that you started was because somebody trusted you, because you did something, and then you build that trust. But people look at you in your nice fancy office with your nice fancy suit and your nice fancy glasses and go, isn't he lucky? But one of the things we do on this show is we show the blood. If we're not hitting the blood and we're not hitting the sweat, then we're wasting our time, and we're like every other hospitality podcast where we're just bullshitting each other.
Yeah, we're the Bob Walters of podcasting. We're not happy until our guests cry. So
that's right. So no, but
I appreciate the compliment on my $11 Walmart glasses.
and your plastic shells behind you. No, but my point being is, you know, you look at Glenn and he's like, oh, you got this podcast, 12 years, #1 podcast. You know, he knows everybody. Isn't he lucky? Nobody sees the blood, the sweat, and, you know, the bones that are crushed, right? Nobody sees, like what you just said, is, you know, we have to start with small. We got to bring in this really good talent. You have to pay really good talent. And then you have to promise them a dream. And guess what? If you promise a dream to really good talent will pop if that dream doesn't start becoming reality. And so then you start losing really good talent. So it's really hard to do what you're doing. And matter of fact, I stayed away from what you're doing for those reasons. Because no, seriously, I literally, people said to me all the time, why don't you start your own management company and take over hotels? And as my mentor, Eric Long from the Waldorf Astoria said to me one day, I don't want other people's problems.
Yeah. Eric Long is the long-term managing director, GM of that property for people who are listening. Yeah. You're so right.
Yeah. So how do you, if I say to you, you know, people say, what's the secret? There is no secret, but there is one secret. If somebody says to you, how do we build and maintain a really good management company, what's the first thing you got to focus on?
For us, I think it's establishing a clear set of values and priorities, right? Values and priorities is where it lie. So from our standpoint, our core values that run through our system, and it's not just these aren't just the things on a list, but they penetrate through incentive programs, through performance evaluations, and so on. Is, you know, one, we say we got to be transparent and accountable, right? We have to be actively curious. Number 2. Number 3, embracing growth. Number 4, creating value for our stakeholders. And number 5, commit and care. And when you run through those things, transparency, accountability, actively curious, embracing growth, delivering that value to the stakeholders, and commit and care, some of those things differentiate us again. You know, when we go through our behavioral assessments and our cognitive assessments for all the managers that we hire, we expect everybody to be above the average crust of what you see in hospitality. If they're not above, they don't make the cut. And you find that smart people, they can sometimes be a little tougher to manage, to your earlier point about talent. But they're actively curious. They're asking questions. They're challenging you. Sometimes they challenge you in a way that helps hone you and reshape you, and you come up with better solutions. And sometimes it just, through that challenge, you reaffirm the things that you're doing, that we've made the right decisions. We're doing it the right way. We're doing it well already. That commit and care piece, that's part of what happens when you bring in talented people that are experienced, but in a boutique size, sometimes is they're more committed and caring about the asset, about the business, about the owner, about the relationship, about the team. And that really helps carry you forward. I can't tell you how many times when there has been a management transition, the client said, hey, I just feel like these guys don't really care about my business, or they don't care about me personally. Right. And we have to convey that through, through our management style. And then the rest begins to deliver itself to some of those other values. When we talk about priorities, I don't think this is anything new. Most people would probably parrot a similar set of priorities. But if you have an exceedingly clear set of priorities with your business, and you align and shape things like incentive programming, balanced scorecards, and so on around those things, then you can accomplish great things. And for us, those priorities are around revenue enhancement, profit management, customer experience, and team member engagement, right? And so those 4 areas become our priorities. So values and priorities shape everything that we do.
All right, that was blockbuster 2 minutes there, Anthony.
I don't. Glenn, when was the last time you saw me write notes?
Seriously, that was the next thing I was going to say, but I didn't want to interrupt you since you started talking. He, like, as soon as you said 1, 2, he grabbed the pad, and I saw him trying to catch up on that. Anthony, that was about the 12-minute mark, so we could re-listen to that. All right.
Yeah. No. The reason I grabbed the pad is because here you are, you're established, you know finance, you know the building, you know everything, right? So you didn't, but you went back to Hospitality 101, build a vision, build a mission statement, build a core value, but don't put it in a book, close the book and say, this is where we're going. Live it every day, put your suit on, and your suit basically is, it's all over your mission statement. Just like as soon as you came onto this podcast, as a matter of fact, the reason I had pen and paper is because he said this guy's really smart. So I was like, I better grab paper. I may learn something. No, seriously. No, seriously. I literally grabbed a pen and paper. I was like, because he doesn't say that often. I mean, everybody's pretty smart that comes on here, but he's like, he's special. So I was like, let me grab a pen and paper. So my point being is you came on the podcast, you looked us in the eye, you had this big, ridiculous smile with this ridiculous looking hair, ridiculous office. I'm like, I want to be that guy, right? And I mean ridiculous in a nice way. And I was like, I want to be that guy. but I want to be that guy. I have that hair look, and so you make me want to work next to you every day. You make me want to come in and learn something from you because I could smell BS from a mile away, as most of us can at this point in this age. So I admire that, and everything you wrote down, we have to remember that sometimes. And one of the things. So can I ask you what predictive index or what assessment tool do you use, if you don't mind sharing it?
I know my other friends out there are going to steal ideas, but
all right. So don't. So maybe you can tell me off camera.
Yeah. No, it's okay. So we're using criteria, and in there, there are, you can tailor it to the job roles. And what's an important part of behavioral assessment is including a cognitive assessment. So I just give you an example. Let's say we're hiring for an analyst and someone meets the behavioral criteria for analyst, but they can't add. So just because someone behaves like an analyst doesn't mean that they'll be successful as an analyst if they also don't have a certain math and logic acumen. Right. And so by testing things like math and logic, verbal, spatial reasoning, those kind of things help us identify the right match, both cognitively and behaviorally, to pull the right person. Just using another example, someone might have fantastic personality and business development profile, and they're an ideal director of sales, but they can't craft a good email to a client. Those kind of things can blow the deal when somebody's looking side by side presentations, and so we just want to make sure there's a good match there. And there's another piece that we use, which is more at the line level, but we want to cast a broader net when it comes to hiring in that funnel. So we have a lot of job placement distribution that happens, but it funnels through a pre-assessment, and then that goes into AI with job matching, and then that goes into actually a pre-interview using AI, and then the AI module gives us some guidance. Hey, they scored pretty well here, but here's a couple of questions. Here's one you might want to validate, and here's a couple more questions you should ask in the interview. And so that helps us to take I was talking to our SVP of Human Resources the other day, and she's like, hey, we have 400 applicants for this job. Here are the 7 we're going to interview. And here's the 3 that are our top candidates. And that helps our hiring managers really spend their time more wisely.
So when people say it's really hard to find good talent nowadays, what do you say?
It is hard, but there are things you can do to facilitate the process, right? So for us, we don't have a lot of open positions. We have some pretty strong retention metrics.
Great.
And I think it comes from the right match, putting the right person in the right seat, and then having those clear values and priorities in place. Great operational framework that helps good people be great.
All right. So that is when you say the engagement, are you speaking specifically towards the Aperture team or the property level people, or both?
So they're all our team. So it's both.
Okay, cool.
Everybody's an Aperture employee. Yeah.
Yeah. I got a question for you on what it's like taking over a property, learning what the culture is at that property, and then going ahead and trying to reshape it to one that you believe will be successful and aligns with those values that your company is focused in.
Yeah. That is always one of the trickier things. I was just having this conversation with an owner yesterday. We came back off the property, and he's got some people that he really likes, and And I kind of made a comment to him that, gosh, there's a lot of hanging out and sitting around around the water cooler and maybe not super productive activity that I see over there. He says, but I love that guy.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how do we step in that culture. And so like people aren't throwaway, and people generally want to be a part of something successful, right? They want to succeed. They want to, generally speaking, they want to advance their career. They want to be experts at their craft. And so we find that when we share those values and we share the future, and we show that, demonstrate that we're committed to them and their career and willing to put as much into their development as they're willing to put into it, they generally step on board and join us. Now sometimes they don't. And in those situations, when we talk about making a cultural statement, it can be important for managers to identify the black sheep. Sometimes you have to make a change, right? And that change will stand out. People will see that you rip the Band-Aids off sooner rather than later. You make your new cultural priority. You put it, you make it stand out. The thing that maybe that person wasn't doing. You make it stand out. It becomes the lead topic in your departmental meetings, right? Your leadership team meetings, and people understand that this is our priority. We're going to fix this,
right?
And you don't move off of it until it's done, and it's like permanently fixed. It's an institutionalized solution. And as you behave like that, and you do those things, people get on board. We find pretty darn quick.
Yeah, Anthony, what do you think about that?
I love everything he just said.
I know.
It's interesting. Before you started talking again, I was going to say, I would not want to be in your lane and going too slow, because when somebody meets you and you're so articulate, so intelligent, and you know this business, and you have this big smile, people are like, "Oh, he's such a nice guy." Okay, he's a nice guy, but go in his second gear when he's in fourth gear and see if he's a nice guy 3 days from now. Meaning, I'm a nice guy. But when we have, and I loved what you said, an institutionalized solution, we set this standard. Not me. The standard, the team set the standard. If I allow you to be in third gear and hanging out at the water cooler, then I just let down everybody that built the standard for our company. So yeah, I could be all the things that you think I am. I'm nice. I'm fair. I have great incentives. But if you are starting to knock over the water cooler, you're probably going to have to go work somewhere else. And you intuitively get that from you, and I like that.
Well, yeah. Look, personally, I'm a competitor. One of the things that I've always enjoyed, whether it's high school sports, it was, I played football, soccer, and track. I was in music, and then on in college, as a music minor, competed in track and field, had some school records, continued to go on and race and mountain biking, kayaking, and track. It was kind of in a, and nationally ranked over the course of the years. And what does that tell you? I like doing things fast. I like to drive fast. I'd like to get things done fast. I like to just, why would we stand around and walk when we could run? And I like to get after it and get things done. And I'm not satisfied with myself if we're not waking up every day a little bit better than we were yesterday. Not satisfied with a team that is complacent and happy with doing the same job that we did yesterday. There just has to be an attitude of continual improvement. And I think the better that you do at that, instilling that attitude in your culture, the more successful you'll be. And back again to incentive plans. In our incentive plans, I'll just give a great example.
Yeah, please.
So there's a lot of, let's say there's for guest service scores. Not all hotels are the same age, right? And a lot of companies say, hey, here's the standard. You have to be above average or be in the top third or whatever the thing is, or they set these arbitrary goals. Right. But part of ours is you get something just for being better than you were before. So if this month you score better than your 12-month average, you get a little something for that. Right. So regardless of whether you got to the goal. But if you can do that and chip away at continual improvement, eventually you get to the goal. and you're looking at a better organization in the future.
Yeah, it's like that theory of 1%. Just try to be 1% better all the time. And even though that doesn't seem like a lot over time, that's huge, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You wake up one day and you go, wow, we're 100% better than we were
right
a year ago.
You know, and what the culture you set, and what I'm hearing what you're saying is that when somebody's on the team, they want to be on the team. So when the work gets hard and it gets challenging and it gets complicated, they get more excited, not less excited. And because they're so focused.
People, Anthony, certain people, right?
No,
that are not performers, they're uncomfortable in that environment, and they usually check out for you. You don't have to check them out. They go,
okay,
wow.
You did something that I do to Glenn every day. You finished my sentence. No, exactly right. Like I always say, you know, when I was running hotels, you want to be on my team. You want to be on our team. It's a fun place to be, but it ain't for everybody.
Yeah.
Because it ain't for everybody. And I'm just going to guess that you were the president of your high school class or president of college class or something.
Yeah. So, yeah. You know, and
he said that so sheepishly. Yeah. Right. So my point being is high performers want to be around high performers, and people that don't want to be around high performers check out. They do. You know, but there's this sense of, but also this is what's really important. When we're younger, you grew up being competitive. You grew up in maybe a family or a household that kind of put you in and give you support, and it was focused on that. But a lot of people come to our career field and maybe didn't have that. I know the military did it for me. The Air Force put me on that track, right, and made sure that I was leveling up. So this industry, more than any other industry on earth, and anybody would challenge, I'll take on all challenges, and I know you wouldn't challenge me because I think you agree with me, is you can go from a front desk clerk that didn't graduate high school to CEO of a hospitality company. And where else could you do that? You can't do that anywhere else.
It's amazing.
Yeah. What is while he's recovering there, what was your first job in hospitality?
I was working in a freestanding restaurant in high school, and it's kind of funny. Very quickly, I was 2 weeks into the job, and all of a sudden, I was the kitchen supervisor. So I was a cook, and then a kitchen supervisor, and then I was the kitchen manager, and then I was the assistant manager of the restaurant. I was doing the money drops, making people schedule, hiring people, and rolling into college and so on. And before and at some point, I remember asking myself, did these people know, like I was 17 and then I turned 18. Did they realize that I'm just a kid? Like I'm just a kid. Why are they giving me this responsibility? Like, I couldn't believe it. But also I was working too many hours. And so one of my buddies gave me he said, hey, why don't you come over to the Hyatt? Because as I moved into college, I was on the sports scholarship, music scholarship, academic, and I was just burning the candle at both ends and working. Yeah. And he's like, you can't work 65 hours a week, it's crazy. And he said you can work the evening shift at the Hyatt and like set up tables and chairs and convention services if you're willing to not be a manager. I said, yeah, let's do it. So I moved over to Hyatt, and you know what happened? I got promoted to manager like really quick, and I couldn't say no because I'm just too much competitive ambition. I couldn't do it. So I was back to I found out hotel people work as many hours as restaurant people.
Well, no, but if you're eventually that is not the case, because all my friends that run big restaurants and all my friends that run big hotels, the guys who run big hotels have more weekends off than the guys who run big restaurants. My friend who ran Tavern on the Green, I used to see him on Easter rolling the Easter egg, and I used to text him and say, hey buddy, I'm home with my family, you're rolling Easter eggs at Tavern on the Green. But that's but you have to work hard, but then you have to eventually work smarter. And how old were you before you were a general manager?
First hotel general manager is full service hotel. I guess it was 28, 29, somewhere in there. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I was 29. I said he's going to beat me in. No, but there's like, what is hard? Like, that's like the mentality of what is hard. Everything's hard.
Right.
You want to be a bus driver and drive around New York City for 8 hours a day and drive in traffic and, and not get tickets and not kill people. It's really difficult to be a bus driver. It's really difficult to be a brain surgeon. Give me a job that's that hard. Right. So, but if you embrace it and you love it and you're competitive, it's easy.
Yeah.
It becomes easy.
Yeah, it's fun. If you love what you do, it's a lot easier.
But it's not it's more, to me, I always say I love what I do, but it's not recognizing the hard. It's recognizing the opportunity. I have a tough time saying opportunity, but I've learned that over years. I say challenge or problem, but it's like, if there's not a problem, what do they need you for?
Right. Yeah, no, we have, so one of the things that you often hear when you're going through the hiring process at the above property level in particular is you bring in the new VP and they say, hey, we want to be part of a growing company. Part of the reason we're leaving is, maybe this company not really on a growth track. I don't see a future opportunity for me, and so on. So we want to come over to your company. So we come in and you keep adding one a month, right? And you just keep chugging, and they're like, wow, oh, this is kind of fast. And they go, man, this is hard work, this growing company thing. But it's what you wanted, right? You wanted growth, and we're creating a growing portfolio. We saw that talent signal in you that you have all this potential and you can do this, right? You're better than you think you are. You can do more than you think you can. Like, let's keep that winning attitude going. And nobody's left, right? I mean, they're everyone's sticking in there, and we keep adding people and building the capacity to continue to grow our business. But back to at the end, everyone wants to be a part of that growing team. They want to be a successful team, but you also got to recognize it ain't easy. It's hard. It's hard, and right, you're solving a new riddle every month, a new puzzle as to how you can optimize a business.
You just said something that I meant to say before and I forgot, so thank you for saying it, is you're better than you think you are. If you have an environment that puts people to the test and they realize they're better than they thought they were, meaning, I always say I never bring anybody over the edge, but we all go to the edge together. And that's where we have to be comfortable. We have to be comfortable on the edge. And if one of us goes over, we grab the other person. If we all go over, we'll probably laugh and joke on the way down because we had so much fun getting there. Right? It's like, well, we tried, it didn't work, but man, didn't we have fun? All right, let's get back up on the mountain. Let's do it again. But if one of the 2 or 3 of you go over, that's not fun. But if you all go over, that's not the intention. But you're like, we're all in this together. And so I've had people over my career say, you've pushed me to my limit. I was like, that's where you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be at your limit.
Yeah.
We're all supposed to be at a limit. What the hell are we living on this life if we're not at a limit?
Yeah, there's probably somebody listening to this right now saying, yeah, you pushed me to the limit and I apologize. But yeah, but you want to get the most, right? You want to know what your full potential is and unlock that. And I think when it comes to those, I mean, I think some philosophies you kind of have to go into it with is think about like agency, self, others, and integration, right? So from an agency standpoint, I think that people value, especially in leadership roles, but even throughout, all the way down to dishwasher, a cook, a housekeeper, everybody values agency and the ability for them to influence maybe their work, their environment, and to contribute to solutions. So one of the things the earlier thing about when we talk about process is allowing people to be part of the process, put their thumbprint on things, and deliver some ideas that then you put into your operational framework and say, hey, we all agreed this is the challenge we have to solve with the customer, and here's how we're going to do it. And then everyone's on board, right? If it's not your idea pushing it from the top down, but rather you help bubble up, listen to your team, and let them bubble it up. I think when it comes to self, right, some employees find purpose in autonomy, right? There are some people who just want the structure handed to them, but there are other people who want a certain amount of autonomy to say, hey, I can do this. Now I know what to do. I'm proud of what I do. I've been advancing my craft. I'm an expert, and I want a little bit of autonomy in there. I think we talk about others. there are groups of people that respond strongly to how their coworkers feel, and they want to have that sense of belonging and equality, and having that family sense around them is very important. And I think other people, integration is important, right? Yeah. And so we talk about integration and people as they mature. You find there's a lot of people, especially young people, come up initially. They want to declare their independence in their work, and hey, I can do all this stuff independently. But really, as you mature, you realize it's interdependence that matters, and how we all work together and combine our efforts to be successful more towards an organizational goal. And that's how teams work. So I think those are important things that, important philosophies to apply.
That's awesome. All right, Anthony, we're getting towards the end here. So Charles, I'd love to see, what were your takeaways from the NYU Hospitality and Investment Conference a couple of weeks ago here in New York? And how does that change your approach to things going forward, if at all?
So one of the things that's there's a number of things that I could probably talk about. There's the supply, demand, what's happening, like how people are investing. So I'd say first, from a supply, I thought it was really interesting that I saw a CoStar report with showing 39% in the pipeline, which is mind-blowing to think 39% growth. How is there 39% growth in the pipeline?
There wasn't a very big pipeline earlier?
That's insane, right?
Yeah,
but it keeps going up and up and up and up and up. But then I keep looking at what's actually happening, and there's only 0.6% through the first 4 months of the year. So that supply continues to be muted, which I think is good overall for the industry to help maintain occupancy at least, and not go backwards at this structure. But I will say that those new deals are difficult to execute, and that's part of why it's so muted, right? As we continue to have those pressures in lending. Those guys who do get open, they're going to be really well positioned with fresh product 2 years from now, that they're probably going to be top performers. So another thing I would say is the product matters. There's a lot of tired assets out there. The brands are trying to get their arms around this and press PIPs forward. I predict there'll be a Pipapalooza going on here over the course of the next year or so.
Pipapalooza, I love that.
And as we, as that happens, those guys that are able to complete it are going to be more successfully positioned. But it's also going to force transactions. So I think transaction market will pick up. So that's some of what we saw in a takeaway. Then there's who's winning. It couldn't be more lopsided. There is I've never seen this in my career. There's a 10% swing between economy performance, luxury performance. So at either end of the scale, you've got economy backing up 5% year over year in demand, and you've got a luxury up 5%. That's really unheard of, and it scales very neatly down through there. But yet, a lot of developers are they're afraid of today's labor challenges, so they're erring towards a lot of extended stay product with limited labor exposure, and seeking that that less volatility. That you see.
When you say labor challenge, you're specifically talking about people working in the hotel, not people that would stay in a hotel, because the job market's essentially full right now.
Yeah.
So what are you doing to overcome what everybody's talking about? Can't find on a different issue. If you look at what's happening in Florida, everybody moved to Florida, so you can't find a housekeeper in Florida. They're paying housekeepers $50 an hour in Boca Raton to clean their house. So everybody's struggling to find labor. Yeah. What are you doing? Because your success going forward, if you can outperform people even 5%. You're going to win. So what are you doing differently that other people aren't doing?
I would say one, we've implemented probably a more flexible work style in some instances. Two, I'd say I should say flexibility and adaptability. Let's combine those things. And then two, there's that attitude of culture, engagement, employee well-being that's really important to people in the place they go to work. Three, I would say, the skills and career development aspect of our company is real important. And then four, it's just the way that we cast a broader net and improve how candidates are funneled through the application process that we were talking about earlier. So if I went back to flexibility and adaptability, just to expand on that a little bit, we have in some locations 4-hour shifts for example.
Right.
So like one property I was just visiting, we have airline contract business. They don't necessarily check in and check out at normal hours, and there's opportunity for an afternoon, evening 4-hour shift there. And guess what? There are some people to get by. They need more than just a full-time job or, a 30, 35 or 40-hour job. They might need an 4-hour shifts actually work for them, right? So being flexible is important. We implement a system when it comes to scheduling that when as managers we post shifts, sometimes you don't have coverage for somebody because all these people have asked for a time off, but people can go into their app and select the shift they want to work and ask for that. And so if they meet the requirements of that job duty, that responsibility in the hotel, that job role, they can click in and select that shift and say, hey, I'll do it. I'll work Saturday at this time. Those kind of things are important. Culture, engagement, and well-being. I think we kind of, touched on skills and career development. We haven't necessarily, but again, if you go into it, everybody wants to be known for being a top performer, I think, or at least people who make it through our assessment process do.
Right.
And so with that comes some career development opportunities. So we embrace things like we have a culinary apprenticeship program. We have a hotel manager development apprenticeship program. Things like that. People see, hey, I can advance here in this organization. They're going to be committed to me in my development as I go forward. So those kind of things are helping us.
Awesome. I love it. Anthony, anything else for our incredible guest?
I'm running out of ink.
All right. Charles, thank you so much for being here. Give us a quick plug for Aperture Hotels if anybody's looking to work with you.
Hey, a quick plug for Aperture. So look, a great third-party management company. We'd love to have you. Go to Aperture, www.aperturehotels.com to find out more.
All right. Awesome. Thanks, man. Really appreciate you. Do me a favor. Just hang out backstage for just a second while we wrap up. Thanks so much. That was a good one, Anthony. I'm sorry you ran out of ink, but not sorry.
Yeah.
At the same time.
Well, listen. Well, let this be a testament to everybody watching and listening to the show. Here I am doing this for almost 40 years, and I'm writing down things from somebody, and appreciating everything you're saying. Now, do I know that intuitively? Of course I do. But the way he says it, and in today's, if you notice what he was saying, right? He's talking about a lot of things that we talk about, in the show and just in running a good business. But then he was talking about technology used in the right place, whether it be for scheduling, whether it be for finding employees, or whether it be for bringing those employees and evaluating those employees into the hotel. So he was weaving good old business 101 with subtle technology points that work. He wasn't talking about robots, and he wasn't talking about crazy, we're going to do this, we're going to do that.
Right, yeah.
It's like, we're talking about X's and O's, man. And, by the way, in today's day and age, we have some technology that can help us.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Charles, I know you're backstage, so I think you got a book in you there, buddy. And while Charles is writing that book, re-listen to this show. There are so many great points in there. You could download it wherever you get your podcast. And, of course, you could watch it on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Insta. And, of course, all shows are housed at novacancynews.com. Great show today. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Remember, everyone, you've got one life, so blaze on, and
be kind to yourself.
See you later.